The story begins not in a grand palace, but in the quiet, wind-swept town of St. Andrews in Scotland. It was the autumn of 2001, and two young people, both 18 years old, were arriving at university, each carrying their own unique history. For Prince William, this was an escape. He was the son of the future King Charles and the late beloved Princess Diana, and his entire life had been lived under the relentless gaze of the world's media. St. Andrews represented a rare chance at normality, on an agreement with the press to leave him alone during his student years. For Catherine Middleton, known to everyone as Kate, it was an adventure. She came from a close-knit, self-made family. Her parents, Carol and Michael, had built a successful party supplies business from scratch, funding a comfortable life and private education for Kate and her two siblings, Pippa and James. They were unlikely companions at first. William was royalty, heir to the throne, but he was determined to fit in. And Kate was pretty and athletic, but she was not an aristocrat. Their paths crossed in the most ordinary of ways. They lived in the same student halls, St. Salvator's Hall, affectionately known as Sally's. The building was a grand Gothic structure, but inside it was just a typical student dormitory, with shared kitchens, noisy common rooms, and the universal chaos of young people living away from home for the first time. William, trying to be just another student, would do his own laundry and was often seen trudging to the communal washing machines with a bag of clothes. Kate, who was studying art history, was also finding her feet. She was not the loudest person in the room, but she had a quiet confidence and a warm, friendly nature that drew people to her. She threw herself into university life, excelling in her studies and sports, particularly hockey. For the first few months, William and Kate moved in the same circles, but were just acquaintances, and they shared meals in the dining hall with a group of friends and attended the same lectures. There were no dramatic first meetings or thunderbolts of love. It was a slow, steady build of friendship. They got to know each other's sense of humor, their likes and dislikes, and their values. Kate was unfazed by William's status. She teased him and treated him like a normal person, which to him was the most refreshing thing in the world. He was not Prince William to her. He was just William, a fellow student who happened to have a funny way of dealing with the laundry. The spark that would ignite the world's imagination came in the second term, at a moment that was both public and surprisingly intimate. In March 2002, a charity fashion show was held at the university's St. Andrews Bay Hotel. Kate, encouraged by her friends, had agreed to take part. And the theme was the art of seduction, and the dress she wore was a daring choice for the usually reserved student. It was a sheer, strapless number designed by a student named Charlotte Todd that was meant to be a skirt but was worn as a dress. As Kate walked down the catwalk, the lights shining through the sheer fabric, she didn't look nervous or awkward. She looked confident, elegant, and utterly captivating. Sitting in the front row was William. He had come to support his friends, but his attention was immediately fixed on Kate. According to friends and later retold in documentaries, the moment was electric. One story, which has become a beloved part of their lore, claims that William was so struck by the sight of her that he physically stumbled as he went to speak to her afterwards. He reportedly walked over, tripped over his own feet, and said, "Oh, that's a terrible start. You're going to think I'm a complete clot." It was awkward, endearing, and utterly human. In that one clumsy moment, the prince was just a nervous boy trying to talk to a girl he liked. Kate, with her characteristic poise, simply smiled. She didn't laugh at him. She just accepted it with a grace that belied her years. From that night on, their friendship began to deepen. William saw something in Kate that he hadn't seen before. She was not just a friend, she was someone who could command a room, who possessed an inner strength and a natural elegance. The clumsy approach had worked. But it broke the ice. and, in its own way, was more memorable than any smooth, practiced line could have been. It was the start of something, a quiet shift in the air between them. The world didn't know it yet, but in a drafty student union building in Scotland, the foundation for a future king and queen was being laid, beginning with a stumble and a smile. It was a beginning so ordinary and so charming that it felt less like a royal fairy tale and more like the start of any great love story, and proving that even princes can be hopeless romantics when they meet the right person. In their second year, the decision was made to move out of the dormitories and into a flat together. This was not the scandalous step it might seem. It was a practical arrangement. William, Kate, and two other friends, Fergus Boyd and Olivia Bleasdale, rented a small, modest apartment off campus. It was a significant move, one that would truly cement their bond. Away from the watchful eyes of hall life, and they settled into a domestic rhythm that was surprisingly normal. The flat was a safe haven, a place where William could truly be himself. He was not just hiding from the press, he was learning what it felt like to have a home life that was his own. This was where the real person behind the prince was revealed. In the flat, titles and wealth meant nothing. There were bills to be split, groceries to be bought, and a kitchen to be cleaned. William, who had been waited on his entire life, he discovered the simple joy of making a meal for someone else. A story later emerged that perfectly captured this time. William would sometimes cook for Kate. It wasn't fancy cuisine, but simple, hearty food. He would make a tomato and beef bolognese pasta, a dish he could manage, and serve it to her in their small kitchen. Friends noted that it was these quiet, unremarkable moments that Kate cherished most. Seeing him in an old, comfortable jumper, relaxing on the sofa, just being a normal boyfriend. It was a world away from the pomp and ceremony of Buckingham Palace, and it was exactly what both of them needed. Their time in St. Andrews was carefully protected. There was an informal pact between the royal family and the British press to leave William alone during his university years. This gentleman's agreement gave the couple the precious gift of time. They could go for walks, visit the local cafes, and attend lectures without a phalanx of photographers following them. It was during these years that their relationship deepened from a crush into a genuine partnership. They saw each other at their best and their worst, stressed during exam times, grumpy when tired, and silly when with friends. Kate's family also played a crucial role in grounding William. He was invited to the Middleton family home in Bucklebury, Berkshire, but a place he would later describe as a warm and welcoming contrast to the formal atmosphere of royal residences. At the Middletons, he experienced a boisterous, loving family life. There were loud games after lunch, walks in the garden with the family dog, and Carol Middleton's home cooking. It was a glimpse of a life he had never had, a normal family unit where people laughed easily and supported each other unconditionally. He bonded with Kate's parents, and they, in turn, treated him with kindness, but without the fawning reverence he usually received. They were more concerned with how he treated their daughter than with his royal title. In 2005, they both graduated. William had switched his major from art history to geography, and Kate received her degree in art history. Their graduation day was a landmark moment. The royal family, including Prince Charles and the late Queen Elizabeth II, attended, publicly signaling their acceptance of Kate into the royal fold. And the photos from that day show a confident couple, laughing and smiling, with William in his formal gown and Kate looking elegant in a white suit. It was the end of their idyllic university bubble and the beginning of real life. They moved to Anglesey, in North Wales, where William was based for his training as an RAF search and rescue pilot. There they set up home in a rented farmhouse, far from the spotlight. It was perhaps the happiest and most normal period of their entire lives together. Kate took on a job working for the clothing brand Jigsaw, but her main role was being William's partner, creating a stable home for him to return to after his intense and dangerous shifts. It was a quiet, simple existence, a last pocket of peace before the world would inevitably close in. By 2006 and early 2007, the pressure was becoming immense. William's military career was demanding, and he was often away training. Kate, back in London, was working but found herself hounded by the paparazzi wherever she went. Her every move was photographed, buying coffee, leaving the gym, meeting friends for lunch. The British tabloids had given her a cruel and dismissive nickname, Waity Katie. It implied she was just idly waiting around for a proposal that might never come, a girl with nothing to do but hope a prince would marry her. The scrutiny was relentless, and the criticism was personal. And they mocked her family's background and portrayed her as ambitious and calculating. The carefree days of St. Andrews felt like a distant memory. William, meanwhile, was a young man in his early 20s. He was grappling with his own grief over his mother, the pressures of his royal destiny, and the sudden intensity of his relationship with Kate, which was now playing out on a global stage. He was also enjoying the camaraderie of military life and, at times, the party scene in London with his brother Heir. There were photos of him at nightclubs like Monarchy dancing with other women, which only fueled the media frenzy and, it's easy to imagine, caused Kate private pain. The strain on their relationship was becoming visible. They were on different pages, wanting different things at different times. The breaking point came in April 2007. According to royal biographers, William felt he needed space, and he was unsure if he was ready for the level of commitment that the relationship demanded, and he felt the weight of making a decision that would affect not just them, but the entire monarchy. In what was reportedly a 30-minute phone call, he ended the relationship. For Kate, it was devastating. The news, broken over the phone, felt impersonal and cruel. She was not just losing a boyfriend, she was losing a future she had quietly begun to envision. Her world, which had been so closely intertwined with his for nearly 6 years, suddenly collapsed. The tabloids, who had mocked her for waiting, now had a field day with the breakup. What happened next, however, would define Kate Middleton's character for the world to see. She did not crumble publicly. She did not give tearful interviews or sell stories to the press. Instead, she displayed a level of dignity and strength that was remarkable for anyone, let alone a young woman of 25. She accepted the decision with grace. Her mother, Carol, reportedly told her not to mope, and Kate took that advice to heart. She was seen out and about, not looking miserable but confident and happy. She went clubbing with her sister Pippa and was photographed looking stylish and smiling. She threw herself into activities she loved, including sports. In a move that shocked many and earned widespread admiration, she signed up for a grueling charity challenge to row a dragon boat across the English Channel with a team of other women. It was a physical and mental feat that required immense training and courage. She was proving to herself and to the world that she was her own person, with her own strength and her own life, with or without a prince. William, for his part, did not find the breakup as liberating as he might have expected. The space he had wanted felt empty. He missed his best friend, and he later admitted that they were both very young and needed time to find themselves, but the separation was painful for him too. He began to realize that the quiet, unshakable support Kate provided was not something he could easily find elsewhere. She had never wanted him for his title or his money. She had wanted him for himself. The fun he was having felt hollow without her to share it with. It took only a couple of months for him to realize he had made a terrible mistake. The breakup, and which could have been the end of their story, became the turning point. It forced them both to grow up and to realize with absolute certainty that what they had was worth fighting for. By the summer of 2007, they were spotted together again, tentatively at first, then more openly. They had reconciled, not just as a couple, but as two people who had chosen each other with their eyes wide open. having seen what life was like apart and finding it wanting. In the years that followed their reconciliation, the relationship between William and Kate underwent a profound transformation. The brief but painful separation had acted as a forge, tempering their bond into something stronger and more resilient. The uncertainty was gone, replaced by a quiet, mutual understanding. They were no longer just a university couple. They were partners in every sense of the word, building a life together with a shared vision for the future. And the cruel nickname Weighty Katie began to lose its sting as the public saw a woman of substance, gracefully supporting her partner while also pursuing her own interests and charitable work. She took on more royal duties, not officially, but as William's constant companion, learning the ropes of public life with patience and dedication. She accompanied him to royal weddings, charity galas, and military events, always composed, always appropriate, and always letting her genuine warmth shine through. For William, Kate's presence was his anchor. His work as a search and rescue pilot was dangerous and demanding. Every day he flew missions over the mountains and seas of North Wales, saving lives in perilous conditions. Coming home to their remote cottage on Anglesey, where they could live in relative anonymity, was his salvation. Kate created a haven there. She cooked for him, took care of their home, and provided a normal, loving environment that was a world away from the formality of court life. It was during these years that their bond deepened immeasurably. They were a team facing the challenges of his dangerous job and the constant looming pressure of their public destiny together, in private. The moment that the world had been waiting for came in October 2010. William had planned the proposal meticulously. He chose a location that was deeply personal and significant, Kenya. And they were on holiday at the Lewa Wildlife Conservancy, a place of stunning natural beauty and a continent that held a special connection to his mother's legacy. One evening, as they sat by a lake in the shadow of Mount Kenya, William got down on one knee. He didn't present Kate with a new, flashy diamond. Instead, he offered her something infinitely more precious and symbolic: his mother's engagement ring. It was a stunning sapphire, surrounded by diamonds, by a ring that the world instantly recognized from the countless photos of Princess Diana. It was a gesture that spoke volumes. By giving Kate that ring, William was not only asking her to be his wife, he was, in a very public and poignant way, welcoming her into the heart of his family and honoring the mother he had lost. He later confessed to carrying the ring around in his backpack for 3 weeks beforehand, terrified of losing it. Kate, of course, said yes, overwhelmed by the romance of the moment and the profound meaning of the ring. The news was announced to the public on November 16, 2010. The world's media descended on London, and the couple gave a televised interview, sitting on a sofa in the opulent surroundings of St. James's Palace. They were visibly nervous, but also radiantly happy. When asked about the ring, William spoke movingly about it being his way of keeping his mother close to the proceedings. Kate, wearing a deep blue Isa dress, and charmed the world with her poise and humility. She fumbled a little when William asked her to show the ring to the camera, a moment of adorable awkwardness that made her even more endearing. They spoke openly about their years together, their brief split, and their excitement for the future. It was clear to anyone watching that this was a genuine partnership, built on years of friendship, love, and mutual respect. The fairy tale was officially on. But it was a fairy tale with its roots in real life, in shared struggles and a love that had been tested and had triumphed. The date was set for April 29, 2011, and the world began to prepare for a celebration unlike any other. The wedding of Prince William and Catherine Middleton on April 29, 2011, was more than just a royal ceremony. It was a global event, a moment of collective joy and pageantry that captivated an estimated 2 billion people worldwide. But amidst the grandeur of Westminster Abbey, the carriages and the crowds, The most striking thing about the day was the palpable sense of genuine emotion between the two people at its center. Kate, arriving with her father Michael in a Rolls-Royce, took the world's breath away. Her wedding dress, designed by Sarah Burton for Alexander McQueen, was a masterpiece of timeless elegance. With its lace sleeves, inspired by the Victorian tradition of embroidery, and its graceful train, and it was both a modern statement and a nod to royal history. Her sister Pippa, as maid of honor, and young bridesmaids and page boys, including a very serious-looking Prince Harry as best man, completed the picture. As Kate walked down the long aisle of the Abbey, the weight of the moment was visible on her face. She was composed, but her eyes were searching. When she finally reached the altar, she turned to William. It was then that the world saw the real story. As she approached, William, standing rigid in his Scarlet Irish Guards uniform, leaned in slightly and whispered to her, "You look beautiful." It was a private moment, caught by microphones, that revealed the loving, supportive partner he had become. They looked at each other not as a prince and his new princess, but as a man and a woman, slightly overwhelmed by the scale of the occasion, but utterly grounded in their love for one another. Throughout the service, conducted by the Archbishop of Canterbury, they held hands, exchanged glances, and at one point seemed to stifle a shared laugh, a tiny moment of normalcy in the middle of a global spectacle. The ceremony was a beautiful blend of royal tradition and the couple's personal touch. They had chosen hymns and readings that were meaningful to them, but perhaps the most telling detail was the guest list. Alongside foreign royalty and heads of state were the people who had been part of their real lives. William's former housekeeper from St. James's Palace, and the owner of the Middleton family's local pub in Bucklebury, and Kate's yoga teacher. It was a testament to their desire to keep their feet on the ground, to remember the ordinary people who had supported them along the way. After the service, the newly titled Duke and Duchess of Cambridge appeared on the famous balcony of Buckingham Palace. The crowd below roared with approval. Then, in a moment that would become one of the most iconic images of the day, William leaned in and kissed his new wife. It was a shy, sweet kiss, and it sent a wave of cheers through the crowd and around the world. They kissed again, a little more confidently, a perfect symbol of the joy and hope they represented. Life as a married couple began, but it was not the end of the story. It was the beginning of a new chapter. They returned to their quiet life on Anglesey, where William continued his duties as a pilot. Kate, now the Duchess of Cambridge, and threw herself into learning the ropes of her new role, but in their private moments, they were just William and Kate, cooking dinner and walking their dog, Lupo. In the coming years, their family grew. Prince George was born in 2013, followed by Princess Charlotte in 2015, and Prince Louis in 2018. The images of them as a family, whether on the steps of the Lindo Wing or during their official tours, showed a warmth and normalcy that resonated with the public. William was a hands-on father. I often seen pushing a stroller or carrying a child on his shoulders. They were determined to give their children as normal an upbringing as possible, a sentiment rooted in William's own complicated childhood and Kate's stable, loving family background. They had moved from being a fairy tale couple to a relatable modern family, navigating the joys and challenges of parenthood under the unrelenting gaze of the world.